Oh my god, there's absolutely no way to describe just how quickly this Montreal Canadiens season has spiraled into an uttering, flaming mess. 18 wheelers long gone off the cliff at this point. Everyone is freaking out. The Canadiens have lost 7 straight games in a row. Like, okay, they've lost games. They lost games at the start of the season, but there was some positive behind that. You know, they just weren't getting the luck they needed, and quite frankly, they still really aren't getting the luck that they needed this season. They're sitting right now at a 91.3 PDO, which baseline even is 100. To give you an idea of just how unlucky the Canadiens have been, they put up a franchise record 30-shot period against the Anaheim Ducks and lost by 4 goals. This franchise is older than anyone who's watching this video, for God's sakes. 30 shots in a period is more than some teams get all game, and they lost. And part of that goes in, the minute a puck goes in and they're trailing again, everything seems to come unglued. It's 1 goal, then it's 2 goals, then it's 3 goals, then it's 4 goals, and Carey Price is breaking his stick over the net like he's Pete Townsend of The Who smashing a guitar. It's maddening. They dominated the Ducks. Absolutely took them to the woodshed. They did it to the Kings, too. That first period, they were right there. They were right with them. They might have been tied. They were leading for a little. They were not leading. They only scored 1 goal. But they were right there, and then 1 goal goes in, and everything just spirals out of control. Against San Jose, stop taking penalties and giving them a power play. That's pretty simple, I would think, right? And just as you watch this team play, you watch some of the breakouts, you watch them try to take the zone and get into the offensive zone, you watch them try and exit the defensive zone, and it's like none of them ever played together. Passes are 10 feet wide, they're not finding sticks, they're getting blocked. People are trying the crazy cross-ice feed that's a low percentage play. Looks great if it comes off, but guess what? It's not coming off. Focus on getting the puck in. Skate the puck in and then dump it if you have to. But for the love of God, start getting the puck into the offensive zone. It's killing the power play. You watch guys skate up ice and then just nothing happens. They're trying to get in there and nothing. They get turned back. They try a pass and it's going the other way. And more often than not right now, it's ending up in the back of the net. So, simplify things. I don't know if it's just people are trying to do too much or what. Take the puck, get it in the zone, put shots on net. Your shooting percentage can only get 4 points lower, so what's the harm in putting more pucks on a goalie, right? And quite frankly, at this point, though, it's just, there is no simple solution. You know, you can make a bunch of trades, you can do a whole bunch of things, but here's the thing. If you're not going to be smart about it and you're going to be reactionary, which is something Marc Bergevin has been in the past, you're going to make a mistake here, and it's not going to be good. You don't want to trade Alex Galchenyuk for Cal Clutterbuck. That's a very bad idea. We've gotten past having fourth-line grinders. The grindiest, it's a word, I swear, player on the team right now in terms of forwards is arguably Torrey Mitchell or Andrew Shaw. And Shaw's a very effective player when he's got his head on straight, which, you know, so far this year it's been taken off by several opposing players, much to the chagrin of, you know, Claude Julien and Canadiens fans everywhere. If you have to make a move that's going to make the team better, we need to fix the defensive problems right now. No one can seem to move the puck out of the zone except for Victor Mete and Jeff Petrie. I don't know about David Schlemko. He's apparently having hand surgery for, I believe it's bone chips, which he went from bruised hand at the beginning of training camp to missing 2.5, 3 months now. What the hell? He played 1 game in the AHL, had an assist on a game-winning goal. We'll get to that. And then nothing. He was out. He got recalled to Montreal and then was put on IR for 3 weeks to have hand surgery. I don't think this is how Marc Bergevin envisioned this season going so far, but every move he has made thus far, outside of the Jonathan Drouin trade, has just been exploding in his face. Andrei Markov is currently one of the top 5 scoring defensemen in the KHL. Mark Streit got waived. Jerabek is playing in the AHL and should probably be called up at this point. Joe Morrow and Brandon Davidson both seem to be rotating on the lineup. Brandon Davidson's been very good this year, but Julian has been leaning on Morrow, who has struggled. And Jordy Ben, despite leading the team in a Corsi for percentage, according to some of the charts I looked at, hasn't looked like the guy who we had last year after acquiring him from Dallas. He seems like an entirely different player. He's been fumbling the puck and making mistakes, and more often than not, they're ending up in the net. And then Carl Alsner, if you go watch the highlights from last night's game against Anaheim, you're going to see exactly why some people were apprehensive about giving Carl Alsner a five-year deal. He got beat to the post. He tipped a puck in his own net, which happens to everybody, but it's happening a lot this year. And he's not been what's needed right now. Jeff Petrie is doing his best to carry him along, and he's doing a fairly good job at it. Jeff Petrie is a very good defenseman, but it's just not working right now. Every little thing that could be going wrong is going wrong currently. Carey Price isn't playing up to an elite level, and I'll get to that during the mailbag, because there's a very good question about that. But if changes are going to be needed, for sure going into this year, we need Mark Bergevin to look at the big picture here. Don't blow up the court. Don't trade Max Pacioretty. Don't trade Alex Galchenyuk. Don't trade what few prospects we have left for some magic beans and heart that's magically going to get this team in the playoffs. Do something, but think about the reaction that you're going to have to it. Don't trade your top offensive stars for something intangibles and everything like that. Getting into happier news, though, the AHL franchise, despite having a high and low series against Binghamton, seems to have turned a corner from where they've been in previous years. Their first game against the Binghamton Devils ended up being a 15-goal absolute barn burner that featured 3 hat tricks and Daniel Carr scoring his game-winning goal. That was his hat trick goal in overtime, the first game after coming back from after his father's passing. You could not write a better story than that for Daniel Carr, who's had a very rough go since his rookie seasons in the AHL and the NHL. He was very good, hurt his knee, came back and still was very effective, and then had absolutely brutal luck last year, right down to having his head slammed into the boards by a Binghamton Senators player in a game that knocked him out for the rest of the season with a concussion and a jaw injury. It's hard to not root for someone to come back from all that right now. What is kind of concerning is that Charlie Lindgren, who last year was flawless when called upon, has struggled this year. He let in 6 goals against Binghamton. Zach Fucale was put in his place. Fucale gave up 1 goal and then stopped the other 9 that he faced, ending with a .900 save percentage and a win in what was a peak Zach Fucale moment in that 8-7 game. The following day, Lindgren got absolutely shelled against the Devils. Rocket only scored 1 goal, handed their first loss of the season. Last night against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Lindgren once again had a night he would like to forget. 6 goals in a 6-5 overtime loss in a game that was absolutely back and forth. It was just like the game against Binghamton. Unfortunately, they didn't come out on top, but the big story is, 1, they have got to stop taking penalties. Daniel Sprong of the Penguins absolutely ripped this team apart on the power play. He got the puck and you just waited for the goal light to go off. He scored a hat trick, the first of his career, and then also was a major force in overtime. And unfortunately in overtime, the game-winning goal against Lindgren is probably one he's going to want back. Teddy Bluger shoots it, it's blocked by a Rocket defender, and then he weakly backwinds 5-hole through Lindgren. Wilkes-Barre Scranton goes on to celebrate, and the Rocket move on to face the Bridgeport Sound Tigers tonight at the time that I'm filming this, so this is probably going to be a little out of date by the time it goes up, unfortunately, but there's not much I can do about it. But even with those losses, there is some good news. Nikita Scherbak, who is someone a lot of people have been on the fence about based off of his production in his first 2 AHL years, has been absolutely outstanding for the Rocket this year. In the 5 games the Rocket have played so far, he has 1 goal and 7 assists for 8 points. which right now leads the team by 1 point over both Chris Terry and Matt Terramina. Terramina has 1 goal, 6 assists for 7 points. Terry has 4 goals, 3 assists. Those guys are longtime AHL vets. Seeing Sherbak at the top of the charts there, like before him Charles Hudon or Bud Holloway or some of the other players like that, is a very good sight to see. And with Montreal struggling to do anything besides put the puck in their own net, we might see Sherbak get an NHL look here coming up once the team gets back to Montreal. They face Florida on Tuesday. Laval finishes their road trip in Providence on Sunday, so there's a very good chance that after the 5 p.m. deadline, you could see Sherbak called up and possibly in the lineup. It really couldn't hurt at this point to inject a huge dose of skill and talent into the lineup and maybe spark a few guys to get going. Or otherwise, guess what? The AHL guy's just going to take your spot. If you're not playing well enough, someone definitely will be, and they will take your spot because that's how competition works. And now we're going to get on to the mailbag part of this. I've got a few very good questions. The first comes from Oscar Bild on Twitter, who asks, what is your opinion on stripping Max Pacioretty of the C? And I think it's the dumbest possible idea you can have. This team's confidence is already in the toilet, as evidenced by their California road trip, where after 1 goal, they just air out of a balloon and collapse. They voted for Pacioretty to be team captain. You're going to take that away from him and give it to someone else? That's not going to help anything. Putting the C on Shea Weber doesn't magically make him score goals at even strength. It doesn't stop him from having pucks deflect off his net past Carey Price. It's a letter on the chest. It's symbolic mostly, but it's a very important part, especially for a franchise like Montreal, which puts its players on such a high pedestal. Stripping your team captain of the C when he's been nothing but a loyal player and one of your best for the better part of the past 5 years is a terrible idea. And don't even get me started. Anyone who thinks trading him is a good idea should be put in a loony bin. It's a terrible idea. He makes $4.5 million a year and is capable of scoring 35 plus goals. Don't trade that. We've seen where this goes. They end up going to Philadelphia, doing a whole bunch of stuff with a future Hall of Famer, and we sit here and wonder why our team's in the toilet. Ethan Stacy asked, who would be my pick for the next Canadiens GM? I don't believe Marc Bergevin is going to be fired anytime soon, but if I'm picking another GM, the one name that's come to mind and one that's been tossed around for a long time is Julien Brisebois, who is currently part of the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. He's the assistant GM, and he also is the GM of their AHL team in Syracuse. Having followed the AHL closely for the past 5 years and seeing what Syracuse is able to do on a regular basis, Brisebois is a very good pick to be a future GM in the NHL. He's got smarts. He needs to be balanced out by someone who knows how to work the cap a little bit and can scout players, and that's why Trevor Timmins is there. Timmins is a very well-regarded scout. He does very well at the draft when he's given control over it. So Brisebois is my pick. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think you're going to see assistant coaches and players moved out. Claude Julien isn't going anywhere. They didn't give him that money and a contract just to fire him after less than a full season total. So, and then the last question pertains to Carey Price, and it comes from our sister site, Raw Charge. And if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sorry. Sama, I'm sorry. It's about Carey Price, and there is a chart that's goals saved against average, and at the top half you have, Jonathan Quick and goalies whose teams are winning right now, and at the bottom is Carey Price. And is it a cause for concern, or is it a small sample size? And the answer, quite frankly, is both. It's concerning because it impacts right now. The Canadiens aren't winning. Price isn't doing much to help them. He has a sub 900 save percentage. But when you look at how the team has played in front of him and how the shots that they've given up, it's hard to really blame Price for some of the goals that he let in. He's likely overreacting and trying to do so much just himself that he's, kind of just putting himself out of position. He's, here, he's here. He needs it. I say this like I'm some goalie expert, but it's like, if the defense can solidify a little bit and allow him to, not have to react and be so left to right over and over, and let him focus, things are going to get a little better. It's 8 games. It's a very bad 8-game stretch. Don't get me wrong. One of the worst in Canadiens history, but Carey Price is not this bad. Carey Price is not a sub-900 goalie, and I would fight anyone who thinks otherwise. Let's be honest here. That's all I've got for this episode, though, however. I know last episode I said, don't panic, things are going to get better, and then I went away for Florida for a week, and everything hit the fan and exploded in my face. Things are going to get better. They're not going to shoot 4%. Carey Price isn't going to be a 900 save percent, below 900 save percentage goalie. Things are going to get better, but there are still some worrying signs that need to be addressed on this team. As always, you can follow at HabsEOTP on Twitter, at my personal account at Scott Matla. And remember, hashtag EOTP Weekly for any questions, suggestions, and whatnot. Hopefully the next video will be a little bit happier and we'll have some wins to talk about, alright? Go Habs, go.